My name is Andy Telejohn. I'm the managing editor of Upsize magazine. Upsize and Rick Brimacombe's Club E partner on a number of events throughout the year that are held here. You can learn more about those at our website, upsizemag.com, or at clube.com. At this time, I'd like to call our 4 expert panelists up to the stage. First, Dean Willer from our presenting sponsor company, Winthrop & Weinstein. Dean is an attorney focused on several areas, including business and corporate law. John Cassens is a director with DS&B CPAs and Business Advisors, where he provides business owners and management teams guidance on improving their financial reporting. Rick Brimacombe of Club E and Brimacombe Capital, Brimacombe & Associates. He works with early stage and emerging companies and has been a venture capitalist since the early 90s, and he works with a ton of small businesses. I talk to a lot of folks for the magazine, and it's more unusual if they don't know Rick than if they do. And then finally, Dan Moshe, founder and CEO of Tech Guru, where he helps business customers in the area, primarily, I believe, in the area of accounting, with all things technology, and he's also a certified EOS implementer. I get that correct? Yes. And now I'll introduce the 2 Growth Challenge companies. For the time being, you just stand up and let people know who you are. Colin Icarella, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at No Sweat, which has created peel and stick liners for headwear that wicks away sweat and the problems associated with it. The company's grown through professional sports largely at this point, particularly the National Hockey League, but it's looking to get into the much larger construction market and looking for some feedback on those plans. And we've got Pete Sari, founder and CEO of Foreverance, who's created a company that helps families celebrate the lives, passions, and legacies of the family members that they've lost through the creation of custom-made urns and memorials. Colin's going to start this off. I'd like to thank you both for taking part in these sessions. We started with about 6 weeks ago with a private meeting with the experts, and now we're going to talk a little bit about, we'll cover a lot of the same ground here, and Colin's going to give an overview on No Sweats, where they're at, how they got where they're at, and where they're open to go. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Talk about a lunch, huh? If you ate that whole thing, I'd be sleeping in 10 minutes. So I think I did about 80%, so I feel accomplished. I was always a member of the Clean Plate Club growing up with my mom, so she might be a little disappointed in me, but I tried my best at least. Once again, Colin Icarella, the head of sales at No Sweat. We're based out of Hopkins, Minnetonka area. The company was actually founded by 2 brothers, JT and Justin Johnson, back in 2008 in an undergrad business class. So they sat on the patents until 2012 and released a no sweat liner, kind of a one size fits all, mainly targeted at like a hockey market. Had really great traction from the get-go. And after about a couple months, they realized there was a flaw with the product. When you have time, don't do it right now, but when you look at the liner, there's a seal around the outside of the liner now. Back then there wasn't. So when you'd sweat into the product, it actually converts to a gel. And so if that gel's on your forehead and you have any contact, it would start to leak out the product. So they had to take it in and fix one by one. I was out in LA with Medtronic. I was a medical sales rep for 6 years. Buddy from college introduced me to the No Sweat product. I started giving it to my hockey friends that played professionally, and they all loved it. And I just was like, there's a huge opportunity here. I was pretty comfortable in med device already, and I was just, let's take a risk. Let's move back home. I was dating a girl who's now my wife. She was living here. Get to come back and be with my family too, so it seemed like a no-brainer. So left the medical device world to come into No Sweat, where we didn't have any money, and our product was being fixed one at a time by a heat press. And so basically starting with that, and had to raise capital, get mass production up in moving. That took about 8 to 10 months. But now the product is grown from just a helmet liner, where we have a hat liner that you guys all have received today as a sample, which is now licensed by the PGA Tour. Then we have a hard hat liner and a visor liner. So just kind of growing from the original NHL hockey product into now a bigger company. The NHL, every NHL player, I mean not player, sorry, every NHL team has players wearing it on their team, and then every NHL official wears the product in their helmet. They ordered just over 22,000 liners to start the season. But as we've learned, hockey's a great market, but it's not that big. It's pretty small, pretty niche, especially in the States. Canada, it's pretty big. So when we released our hat liner, we thought no brainer, let's go into golf. And within the last 8 to 10 months, we've grown the product huge in golf. Last December, when we launched it on Amazon, it became the #2 golf product in the whole category, next to the Pro V1 golf ball, which was #1. So then we launched it at the PGA show, and within 8 months, we already have a PGA Tour license on it. A little step back more into the company. We have 9 professional athletes across different markets that have invested and are brand ambassadors in the company. So TJ Oshie, who just won the Stanley Cup last year with the Washington Capitals. Dallas Keuchel with the Houston Astros, who were just eliminated in the MLB playoffs. Matt Adams, who's a home run hitter for the St. Louis Cardinals. Stuart Sink on the PGA Tour. Scott Langley on the PGA Tour. Golden Tate on the Detroit Lions. Brandon McManus on the Denver Broncos, and then lastly a talk host tennis player, Kerry Fearman, who's also part of the company. So just a little background on the company, and now kind of going into what the presentation and stuff we did with the Upsize and the growth challenges. So we're launching into the construction market. We have a new hard hat liner that came out end of June, early July this year, and we're doing more of like a sampling process to see what the feedback was and how we could start attacking the market and getting people away from like the old sweat devices, which were made out of cotton, and they just don't perform well, and they're pretty unhygienical to have that on your head if you don't wash it. So we sampled it this summer, and actually today after this, I'm going to the National Safety Conference down in Houston to meet with some of the top hard hat manufacturers to see if we can just license a product with them and have them bring it to market. And then since we've started about 6 weeks ago, we continued to utilize the PGA Tour license. 2 weeks back, just landed a deal with Polaris. They're doing like an online holiday launch, and they're going to be bringing it into their full line next year. We have a couple other big things going on, like in terms of strategic partnerships that I can't really discuss yet, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks can make a big announcement. And then we're going into our Series A of funding in November as well. So I know it's a lot of information, but open to kind of any questions. Thanks again to the panel and everyone that has been a part of this process. It's really unique to see everyone's insights and help us grow. And a few people in the audience as well have connections to No Sweat. So it's great, and hopefully we can grow it into like a Minneapolis-based startup that's puts us on the map a little bit. We have a lot of big brands here, but usually the startup community is like your Silicon Valleys and stuff. So let's put Minneapolis on the map with some sports tech. So with that, I can kind of open it up to any of the panel, or if anyone else has questions.
We'll start with a few questions from the audience. All right back here. Thanks.
Definitely.
Paul Taylor, serial mentor with the Rolodex of Kings. You should be giving yourself a shout out for the Minnesota Cup.
Oh, that's right. Yes, thank you. No Sweat won their division in the Minnesota Cup. So this year, if you guys aren't familiar with the Minnesota Cup, it's the largest statewide entrepreneurship challenge in the country. This year, there's only over 1,660 applicants to get to the Minnesota Cup. There's 9 divisions. We won the general division, so ended up getting $30,000 of funding from winning. Then the top 9 all presented 2 weeks ago. We did well, but we didn't take first or second out of that contest. But it was just a great opportunity, really good PR, and the Minnesota startup community is awesome. So it was just a great experience. So excited about that. So thanks for bringing that up. Sorry, so much going on in this little head.
Any other questions from the audience? I can. Okay, sure.
I have a pretty loud voice, so. I'm just curious about your conversations of what markets you're going to go into next, and or is it more about focus, or is it more about the spray and pray approach and just kind of go everywhere?
Yeah, it's tough. We're a pretty small company in terms of. I think we have like 4 executives. We have a couple external people that have helped us with some strategic deals that we're lining up. The way I'm really seeing it to grow the quickest, and we have patents and stuff, but what's to start like a J&J, a Nike, anyone 3M who wants to really come in and take over. Patents only give you the right to sue. So there's probably ways they could work around this. So the key is to get the name out there. They're not called hey, give me another disposable sweat liner. No, give me another no sweat. So it's just like the Kleenex type of mentality. Get the name out there with strategic partners in some niche markets, and then figure out, do we want to tackle some of the big markets by ourselves or partner? And I guess that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I think if we can grow the name like a Gore-Tex did with coats, we're the no sweat behind any of these liners. We're the technology. They're just distributing it and putting their name on it. So that's my 2 cents now. But we'll see in a month or something. Things just come up and you kind of change the way you shake, rattle, and roll when you're small. So yeah.
Up front.
Or you can take this mic.
I'm curious about your sales, not process, but sales channels. So do you sell through these strategic partners or through channels, or do you sell direct to the consumer?
Yep.
And do you have a strong e-commerce presence, and is that a goal
Definitely.
or objective for the future?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of ton of answers to take with that, but I would say we're directing consumer is our biggest market right now, especially on Amazon. The 2 of the other executives are really big in Amazon and kind of simplifying that process. One of them actually runs a separate business where he helps big brands with their Amazon channels because it's constantly changing. So kudos to those guys. That's their strong suit, and we do really well with that. And then B2B sales are obviously margin-wise and effort-wise is the best. So when you get a construction company saying, hey, I'm going to order 1,000 of these for my employees this month, that's such an easy bulk sale where we do that with our NHL teams. And so bringing the hard hat market, getting into the hard hat market with these construction crews are thousands and thousands of people. You can really, really start moving some good volume. So yeah, it's multifaceted. When it turns to like retail wise, it's been more so like mom, pop, small chains. We're in like Total or True Hockey now it's called. They all kind of combined, but they have like 35 locations. And then we're looking into Q1, Q2 big box launch. We're also going live on Lids, the hat store. We're going live on their .com for the holidays, and then we're doing a test / starting run into their locations, and I believe they have 1,200 locations. So kind of growing the product one step at a time. I didn't know how long it takes to get in some of these big box retails. Like Target right now, if you want to get your product in there, 12 months. So 1 year, they'll sell yes now, but you won't launch it until next year at the same time. So, but yeah. Fitness, yeah. Once again, we target like different pages online. In terms of fitness, though, like there's multiple ways you could grow it. Go to like a Lifetime and say, hey, do you want to add this to your premium club members, that where they could take one and work out with one, or their tennis players could use it. It's just another thing that we can look into and maybe partner.
Colin, you talked a little bit about the construction industry, but you're doing a little bit of what did you call it? Spray and pray.
Yep.
That was one of the big discussion points when we had the private meeting. Have you talked about that any more internally? Is there any more final answer on that yet?
Yeah, I wish I could give you a clear-cut answer. I think some of these meetings this week in Houston are going to be more so telling on that. I would say that working with some of these big companies, and like if you want to strategically partner, most of the time it takes almost a year for them to really implement the strategy. So is that too slow for a company like us, because we might be already getting on the radar, and some of the competition might try to enter with different products or try to work around the patents? I would say that as the sales guy who's doing most of the deals, I would say we're going to look to strategically partner in the construction space with one of the top hard hat manufacturers and let them roll out with their distribution. There's enough margin in the disposable products, so that's the best way to really get the name out there quick. So, and then also Rick gave us some good advice with going into our Series A. We're leaning more towards. He said make it. well, I don't know exactly what your words were, but make it large enough where you're not going to be raising capital again in like 6 months or 8 months. Make sure it's long enough for give you a couple of years of traction, because to date we've always raised money very small amounts and slowly, and so it's never like we're not raising money. It's been 2.5 years of we just closed a round, but we're opening another round, and so the capital thing of raising more so we can focus more so on business rather than always raising capital is where we're gonna steer the company to. Yeah.
Other questions? Colin, what you mentioned the gel leak at the beginning of the production process, I believe. Was that the biggest challenge the company has gone through? What would you say the biggest challenge you've gone through, and how did you address it?
Yeah, I mean, from a company standpoint, by far. I mean, these two brothers launched the product into the market, had all these pros starting to wear it, and then realized, wait, we got to pull it all back, and we got to fix it one at a time. So I think the first year I was with the company before we had mass manufacturing, I think we did $75,000 in sales, and that was the most we could get out the door. I mean, one at a time. Every liner took about 5 seconds through the process, and we had to roll them out on an old school clothes dryer because they were in these big Gaylords. Now our product comes in small business card boxes, almost where it all stacked up nicely, but they were in these huge Gaylords, all bent. So we had to like roll them through multiple times through this process. Then one guy would look to make sure if it's good or not, or you throw it away, and then you stamp it. So when an NHL official order at the time was like 8,000 units or 10,000 units, it'd take a month just to fill that. So it was, that by far from a business standpoint, I only got to ride part of that because I was, working somewhere else during the big oh no moment. But getting to from that point, when I left my job to get into March of 2017, when we had mass manufacturing, was very, very stressful. I was an entrepreneurship major in college and marketing major, but there's no education that you can really get than actually just doing it and grinding it, blood, sweat, and tears, and sweat, no pun intended.
It's the glory of starting a business. It's supposed to be an aha moment, not an oh no moment.
Yeah.
But, any other questions from the audience? Up front again.
Bob.
Hang on just a second.
Thanks. Are you making the product all in Minnetonka or in the local area?
Yep. Yeah. So if you look on the packaging as well, it's 100% made in America. We source our own raw materials from U.S. companies, and we make it all actually in Minnesota. So we do have the production at our place, which was kind of the machinery behind the product. It's why it took long to get mass manufacturing, because the CEO, or Justin Johnson, actually invented the line that we have at our office, production grade line, and then we do kind of the final touches of the product with the Minneapolis company as well. So yeah, trying to keep it all in Minnesota as long as we can. But when you call someone in Florida and I'm like, hey, I'm calling with No Sweat, and it's December, they're like, why do you guys have a sweat technology company out of Minneapolis? Aren't you guys freezing? Like, yes. We started in hockey, though. So, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks, guys.
Nope, don't go anywhere yet.
Keep going.
Yep, we've got feedback from each expert now. I'd like to get each in your own respective area of expertise, your thoughts on Colin's presentation and the future of No Sweat. Rick, we can start with you.
Sure. Actually, tying into what you're going through, Colin, and what maybe some of the other folks in the audience are going through from a fundraising standpoint, where you talked about raising enough so that you had an opportunity to grow the business for a period of time. I would insert milestones. So what are the milestones that you're going to try to hit over the next year or two as you're going through that? And then the other thing that we talked about when we got together was knowing who you are targeting and the type of investor. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that as something that you could share with the audience.
Yeah, in terms of targeting, the reason why I was connected to the company is a guy I went to business school with. His name's John Marshala. So when we moved back, it was pretty much on when we started doing this, it was on our backs through our networks to raise the funds. So it was all angels, or we got in front of the Gopher Angels and got to present to them. But really connections or athletes that we knew, this is how we raised capital. Now with going into a Series A, it's a lot different. One of the executives that's joined us about a year and a half ago, he was a sports agent for quite some time, and he's based out of DC, so he has a completely different network of investors or investment type individuals out there we strategically changed his title from COO to president, as he's going to be really launching us into this funding round. But yeah, we have to definitely tailor our pitch deck more towards like a VC or investment group type rather than an individual. So working on that a little differently, and I'll have to send that over to you to see what your thoughts are on that too before we go live and start sending that out. But it's completely different, because madness and mayhem when you're dealing with venture capital groups compared to individuals.
Thanks. John?
I think, as we spoke about before, the next foray into the construction kind of industry is a logical next step. And, you talk about what the No Sweat does very well in their performance-based product with the NFL, NHL, golf, right? As you're going to the construction industry, it'll be interesting to see, well, and you guys can comment too, on if you've actually found any safety precautions that the No Sweat provides. Specifically, if you're talking to a construction company or the big helmet company, hey, if you can make their product safer or another idea out there to make it safer for them, that's really going to strike their interest, because that's always going to hit their pocketbooks at the end of the day, which I think will be a really good incentive for you to get with them and hopefully increase that speed to get it out to market with them.
For sure. Yeah, the current technology in the hard hat market is pretty archaic. It's just like a cotton sweatband that they clip on, and most companies actually treat it as a disposable. So they're paying more for this product than they would be paying for ours, and it doesn't perform as well. And it's unique that you brought that up, because that actually came up at our table. What if you could prove that if this crew is wearing No Sweat liners, they're going to be taking their helmet off X percent times less, or different ways to kind of attack the market to prove the performance and the safety and the hygiene behind the product is better. Maybe like get an insurance discount if you could partner up with an insurance company to say these crews are wearing it, they get a discount because of it. So yeah, it's such a bigger market than the sports side of it, where I'm really excited about going to Houston and just being able to talk about it and see the potential, because I can't believe there's nothing else new out there that besides the cotton. And they literally have one band, if you ever see it, it's hilarious. They wear it in the hospitals too, but it's a long sponge on your head with a rubber band, and it's just a sponge. So you can get one of those at your kitchen sink too, and just tie a rubber band to it, and you're in business.
Dean, your thoughts?
Well, yeah. Thank you for coming today. As you most of you will be able to tell, I'm an elite athlete. So this product struck me as an obvious, a great idea, whose time clearly has come. I think one of the things you notice about businesses that have a great product, particularly that can work in multiple verticals, is that you always get excited about the shiny object and go here, I can go there, well, look, we can do this, we can do that. But as a small business, you only have so much resources, and no matter how much you raise, you're still going to be back. It's sort of, okay, we still got to pick somewhere. And it's tough, too, when you want to be out there so that you get in front of a Nike or someone like that who decides, hey, these guys got a good idea, let's just ape it, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes right down to it, have you guys made some business level decisions about what is the largest market we can go into, and then what's the market that has the lowest barrier to entry, and finding the right solution, the right say, let's throw our back into this space so that we really invest our investors' capital wisely?
Yeah. I wish I could share some news with you guys. I still can't share it, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks it'll be announced. But
well, if we shut the camera off.
No. So the sports side of the business has always been cool and sexy, because you can use these athletes. But at the end of the day, it's not as big as a lot of the other markets, which we were discussing in the other Upsize meetings. But there's two things we're going into. We're about to announce a celebrity chef is coming on board. The food prep in the kitchen is, most people are wearing normal hats, and it's pretty disgusting. You don't want sweat in your food, and hopefully they're not sweating back there. But so that market's going to be big.
Yeah. Is the Minneapolis Club a customer?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
We got to get their pro shop first in golf. But yeah, so to kind of tackle not every shiny object is like the niche markets. We're going to continue just to, if it comes up, ends up in your lap as a partnership deal, yes, but stay away from those and we're really focusing on those mass markets now. So food prep being one of them, which we'll take on as no sweat for the time being, utilize Cisco, G&K, Cintas as distributors, and actually put the chef's face on the product. So he has, I think, 120 restaurants around the world where he'll, make them order, bring it in, start selling no sweat. And then the other one being the construction market, where I'm thinking we're just going to strategically partner with a MSA, a Puremex, some of these top hard hat manufacturers, and then work with them one-on-one and let them tackle Granger, Fats, and all the distributors, since they already have products in. One of the biggest issues with our company is that we're just a one-off product. So when you go to like a Dick's or go to some of these big opportunities, they're like, adding you to our list of suppliers is tough because you only carry one or two products that had a helmet liner. It's not really worth our time to do it. Whereas if you come in with someone already having distribution, it's just an easy piggyback product. So,
Dan.
Yeah, if that answered the question
sorry.
perfectly.
Dan, Moshe.
Yeah, as I hear the story, I reflect back on the IT company that I founded like 14 years ago, and we really were just kind of everything to anybody. If you had a computer and needed help with it, we could help you. And then, as the story goes, around 2 years ago, we said, dentistry, that's the future for us, IT for dentistry. Turns out it wasn't the future for us anyway. We found that as long as, and hopefully no offense to any dentists in the room, okay, as long as they could drill and fill, life was good, the technology wasn't critical to them. So it was hard to create a differentiator in that marketplace. We found that accounting firms, on the other hand, was completely different. Like, they really need to be up and running. They depend on their technology to be up and running, particularly during the busy season. Maybe you can vouch for that. Right? It's a no-brainer for them to have like top-notch technology, and that's the value that we bring. So I think my kind of thoughts for you is like, hey, fail fast, right? So if you find that you're trying to penetrate this market and you're trying to get some, catch some momentum, but it's not working. Even though we put some money into it, we said, all right, we threw in the towel and moved on to the next thing. And then I also wanted to point out just like a case study from the technology space, the way that Apple, penetrated the business market and went big in business was with the iPhone. And they won over the individual people with the iPhone one by one first. And then people came to their corporate IT and came to the office with their iPhone and said, hey, I want this. Make this work. And that's how it made its big splash now, is their kind of like leading product is mobile and an iPhone. So I think there could be a lot of fun or things to be said with Instagram and selfies with hashtag no sweat.
Yep.
And I'm sure you guys are already doing that stuff. But Dropbox also is another technology company out there. It was kind of viral, and you could give people 2 gigs of free storage, and it really grew just one person at a time with minimal effort by the company itself.
For sure.
So I love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, any other thoughts from the panel of experts? Okay, we've got time for maybe one more quick question from the audience if you want. If anybody has, all right. Colin, what's one thing that you wish somebody had told you about getting involved with a fast-growing small company before you'd come back from your job with Medtronic?
Oh, gosh. One thing? I think, everyone has a service or something where they want to pitch you and get you using, even if it's not the best thing for your company. So being young and kind of naive, we've got ourselves into a few situations utilizing services where we're paying a monthly, fee that just really, we weren't there. Like, we didn't have a mass manufactured product yet, and we're using someone to help us sell and create us content, and it was just way too early, and we were bleeding money doing that. So think about your bank account when you raise money as a small company as it being your personal bank account, and would you actually spend money on that if it was your own money, not the business's money? Because I think you'll make smarter decisions as a business if you treat it that way, because raising funds is not easy and spending money is. So yeah, that would be the biggest thing, I think, because we definitely lost a little bit of the capital we raised to just not smart business decisions. we didn't have a board of advisors at the time either, so it was just 3 guys like, yep, we're doing it, let's go. Guy flew in, we have to sign the paper now. He's here presenting.
So where did you, so you have a board of advisors now? How did you put that together?
We implemented board of advisors, I want to say probably, right about a year into being with the company. And that's going to continue to evolve, especially as we go to like a Series A. Some of the people investing are going to want actual board seats probably. So we'll have to actually change the board of directors into like a more standard board, and kind of evolve some of those advisors. Some of them are investors that can maybe get on the board of directors, you would call it. So yeah, it's all kind of changing over the last few months. But I think our last board of advisors meetings was probably in August, and just kind of keep everyone updated. And they've helped us like stay away from NetSuite. Like we don't need NetSuite yet, obviously. So even though one person was really gung ho about that. So, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Colin. So one of the things that intrigued me about this mix of companies was that the growth challenges are similar. Where do you want to grow? How do you want to go about it? What markets are you going to focus on? One area? Are you going to spray and pray? Completely different type of industry. Pete Sari, CEO and founder of Foreverance, up next at the podium. Thank you.
Hello, Pete Sari with Foreverance. Thank you so much for having me here. And I actually see a ton of similarities between Colin's company and ours in the fact that pretty much everyone's a possible customer. As far as I know, the mortality rate is still 100%. But we help individuals and families tell the stories of their lives. So functionally, we make individually designed 3D printed cremation urns and memorials. So families will approach us and say, Dad loved a sports car, or Mom loved to travel, and we help those families. We interact with those families to create a design that is something that becomes an expression of life and legacy for that individual. So started the business, literally read an article in Time magazine around 2015 that talked about cremation rates, and it made the case that in a very short window of time, the cremation rate had gone from 10% to about 50% and is trending towards about 70%, and basically made the case that the funeral service industry really misunderstands why this is happening and what to do about it. They sort of believed in the premise that people were choosing cremation because it was a low-cost alternative, and that may have been true when cremation was 10% of the market, but I wholeheartedly disagreed with the notion that when it's 50% of the market, that people were just, half of Americans were cheap. So did a little bit of research around whether somebody had thought of this before and had decided to offer 3D printed cremation urns. Turned out no one had, so after a couple months of product development, we decided to introduce the product as a channel sales venture. So in other words, we opened up the idea of funeral professionals selling this product on our behalf. So we started going to funeral director trade shows and introducing the product. And I always kind of have jokingly say they did us a great disservice by liking the product as much as they did, because they said, this is amazing. You're going to change how and when and why people buy this product. Boy, talk about a product category that needs innovation. This hasn't changed in literally 10,000 years, and here you've introduced something so unique and novel, and this is going to be great. And so they also made it very clear to us that the industry does not support organizations that sell direct to the consumer. And so it was kind of we love your product, and here's how you're going to be able to sell it, which is through our distribution channel. So we really tried that for the first couple of years, attended all their trade shows. There's some holding companies out there that own dozens, in some cases hundreds of funeral homes, so we kind of went through procurement channels there. And again, the feedback was always extremely positive. They were always, this is great, we're going to introduce it, just, it takes time, we don't move very quickly, so just bear with us. And so, as you can imagine, as a small business, that's a very difficult answer to hear. Stay patient and bear with us. And so an interesting thing started to happen to our business, which was Number one, the 3D printing industry got very excited by our product because we introduced a consumer product that was 3D printed. 3D printing is still primarily a prototyping and product development manufacturing process, and so when you introduce something that's a consumer good that's 3D printed, the 3D printing industry wants to tell the world about it. So they invited us to the Consumer Electronics Show to present at their booth. This is a company called 3D Systems that makes large-scale equipment. We were presented at their booth. They were writing articles about us everywhere, and the direct-to-consumer side of our business, almost through little effort, started to grow more quickly than the channel side of our business. The other interesting thing that happened to our business is we started getting the attention of celebrities. And so we've done a number of pieces now for different rock stars in particular, most notably Prince from Minneapolis here. We actually made his final resting place. And so in essence, the direct-to-consumer side of our business started to grow quickly while the channel side of our business was static. And so we finally decided, okay, we're going to make a full pivot here and leave the industry and become a straight-up direct-to-consumer brand. So we built a very strong digital marketing program. We built AdWords campaigns that have been very effective for us. We hired a PR firm to help us tell our story. And really, the direct-to-consumer side of our business has been the fuel for our growth, and I believe will continue to be the fuel for our growth. One of the things that we're challenged with, as I'm sure every small business is what do you do and when do you do it? So there's never a shortage of good ideas, but there's always a shortage of capital and always a shortage of human resources to execute on those ideas. And so for us, it's not just different product ideas. We have a number of different product ideas that we're working on. One is an augmented reality feature where somebody could potentially scan one of our objects and have that launch content, whether it's a person's favorite song or a tribute video to that person's life. We're looking at creating a pre-planning platform that's easy to use and offers up options that are not typical industry type options for families. But then you look at market segments, and so we primarily work in a time of need market right now. But one of our biggest growth opportunities, and probably about 20% of our business today, is what we call the pre-planning segment. So that's people that are purchasing our products outside, not at a time of imminent need. And so it's people who just say, hey, I saw your product. I want to kind of take care of this. I want to take control of my personal legacy and not kind of kick it down the road to family members and heirs. So I'm going to purchase this product well in advance of need. So that's, like I said, that's about 20% of our business today and growing significantly. We also do a ton of work that we call post planners. So that means people that purchased one of these products years ago, not knowing that there was a better option, and are now coming back around saying, hey, I didn't realize this existed, and boy, I have an opportunity to remember my loved one in a more appropriate way now. So people coming back to us in situations where the death event may have occurred 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Another segment for us is pet products. We sell pet products today just by virtue of having some featured on the site, but that's a segment that we intend to fully develop as almost, I don't want to say a standalone business, but as a separated off vertical. As I'm sure you guys all know, people spend a ton of money on pets, and our experience has been is that it's actually an easier sales process, because when you're interacting with families when they've lost a loved one, it's usually a consensus group decision, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes into that. When you're talking about somebody that owns a pet, it's that one person making that call pretty much right then and there, and so it's a easier sales process in general. I guess the other thing I'd like to share about our business and talked about is funding strategies. So we launched a Series A raise probably about a year ago, and I think we made the mistake that probably a lot of small businesses make, which is you to your point earlier, Rick, you end up becoming a professional fundraiser instead of running and operating your business. And that was certainly true for us. We raised some money. In fact, we kind of raised it in fits and starts even, where we'd raise a little, use a little, raise a little, use a little. And it just elongates the process. And you know, you always find yourself holding off on some of the things that you feel like you should be executing on. So that's kind of the Foreverance story.
Okay. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Pete has a great photo. It's too bad we don't have, he's got for the pet division, he was showing me an urn that the company created with a cat fighting a Roman gladiator. I thought that was great. At what point, Pete, did you have, sort of a turning point moment? When did you kind of get the sense that, all right, we're on to something here. This has got legs to grow?
Yeah. I think I actually remember the group meeting where we've been really kind of throwing this idea around about, are we a B2C company or are we a B2B company? And we really, for probably a good year, we kind of tried to play both ends. So we were to the channel, we were basically pretending that we were just a business to business company, but at the same time we were selling B2C just because we just couldn't. We have to drive the economic engine of the company, and it was just something we couldn't ignore. And so finally, one day we just said, okay, this is crazy. Why are we pretending to be a B2B company when we're selling 90% of our business is direct to the consumer? And so it just kind of that moment where we were just able to like tear the Band-Aid off and just fully commit. We had, I think at that point we had already committed to another one of these funeral director trade events that we kind of just said, okay, we're pulling the plug on that. All of our marketing energy is going towards what we call affinity groups now. So these are organizations that have passionate, preferably high net worth, large volume member bases. So think like car clubs. And so for example, we had a booth last year at the Barrett-Jackson Auto Auction in Scottsdale where 350,000 crazed car lovers come and kick the tires on cars. We were at the Miami Yacht Show. This February we'll have a booth at the Westminster Kennel Club show. So it's the freedom that comes with being able to sell your product the way you want and to who you want and for how much you want was a moment that I recall.
Great. Questions from the audience? A couple up front here.
What's the difference in price of what you offer versus what the traditional funeral homes would offer as far as caskets?
Caskets or urns?
Well, both.
Okay, so I would say an average price casket is going to be about $4,000 to $5,000. An average urn is about $300 to $400, and our typical urn is about $2,500. And so we definitely play on the high end. But I always kind of like to use the example of a Rolex watch. Nobody has ever bought a Rolex watch because it tells time. You're not buying it for its primary utility. You're buying it because it's an expression of style and it's an expression of elegance. And I sort of feel that way about our product. If you're looking for an ash container, you're not going to buy one of our products. If you're looking for something that's an expression of life, an expression of legacy, then that's where we play.
So how do you keep up with production? How do you scale production?
Sure. So we 3D print each of our pieces, and so we have a bench of about 10 what they call CAD designers, so people that create the images, the digital images of what the pieces that we're going to make. And then we have 2 direct employees who we call finishers. We don't have really good titles for them, but when you use this bench of outsourced CAD designers, the files never come to you the way they're supposed to, right? And so we have to finish them. So that means making sure that it's a consistent wall thickness and that there's the opening is where it's supposed to be and so on. And so and it's saved out in the right file format. So basically we have the bench of designers, which we can expand at any time. It's a fairly ubiquitous skill set. We can employ more finishers to work with these designers. And then right now, with the systems that we have in place, meaning the printers, we're at about 60% capacity. I could have 2, 3, 5 more printers delivered within the next 2 weeks if the need arose.
Other questions?
I was wondering how you protect against competitors, because
Sure.
as you say, if you needed to have more printers brought to you all of a sudden, you could. How do you protect against someone who
Yeah.
gets into the business by going over to Stratasys, buying a single 3D printer and opening a website, for example?
Yeah. So I think number one, with Weinstein's help, of course, we're employing an IP. We have an IP strategy at play. So we are trying to acquire utility and method patent protection on the idea of using this particular manufacturing process and this particular material for this particular purpose. But I think brand and brand development needs to be factored into your IP strategy as well. At this point, we're 3 years out in front of anyone else that would endeavor to do something like this. And so I think there's, to a point anyway, I almost encourage a degree of competition, because I think there's a tide raises all boats mentality. You don't want to be the only player for a long time in the market that you serve. But at the same time, I also want to stay 2-3 years. If, like I said, if somebody jumped in today, we'd be 3 years ahead of them. Next year, I still want to be 3 years ahead of them. So I want to be continuously ahead of the curve from a brand development and brand building strategy too. I just see brand as part of your IP as well.
All right. Let's get some thoughts from the experts. We'll start on Dan's side of the table this time. What are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you. So one thing I was thinking was if it can be done without hurting the brand, is some products that could be that were kind of like ideas, pre-made, so to speak, but could be customized. So what's the word? Mass customization instead of complete from scratch every time. Have you put any thoughts into that? Or what are the theories around that?
Yeah, so the pet site will be launching in about a month and a half to 2 months. And we haven't decided in which order yet, but on the pet site we're going to have the 6 most common breeds of American dogs, so to speak. And you'll be able to purchase just a sculpture of that dog, not customized, but here's a golden lab, here's a collie, here's a poodle. And if you just want, it'll be on a little base where you can at least put the person's name on it or the dog's name on it. So that product will be made available. And then the idea of now customizing it to make it look like whatever you want. So if you want to add an attribute to the dog or think about the activity that you enjoyed with that pet and put them in a certain pose, or think about an article that you associate with that pet, whether it's a blanket or a chew toy or whatever, or their house, we can customize to that degree. So it's offering up, here's the most simple form of customization, and then here's anything and everything. The one thing we haven't decided on is in what order should we present that to customers. Should we start with the high end, and then if they're not interested in the high end, then kind of offer up those more generic products, or should we start with the generic and work them up to custom? So if you guys have good answers on that, I'd be interested.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming, Pete. I have to apologize. I'm trying to hold off on using your product for a while. If I eat more prime rib, I'll probably use it quicker.
Yeah.
Dovetailing a little off what Dan said, we spent a lot of time talking with your business partner about this at the meeting, which is, I think, why we're probably all circling back on it. But it seemed to me intuitively, and maybe I ask you if you guys thought much about it, that something more like stock is the right word, but mass customization or something like that, you could, your price point probably makes maybe $2,000, $2,500 could make a ton of sense. But it almost seemed to me intuitively that when you go complete customization, that you could move up market quite a bit. I mean, I know you said that about the earns, but my guess is that the people that would be in your competitive earn market, right, are probably in the more like the $1,000, $2,500, $2,000 earn, as opposed to like those lower end earns, which you just kind of, I just need someplace to put grandpa on a shelf, right? Yeah. But if you could, it seemed to me intuitively that if somebody's going to really want a pure custom earn, right, that those people are probably a lot less price sensitive, and you could almost, in my mind, almost replace your $2,500 price point with a catalog of either totally stock items or something you can maybe change the colors of things as opposed to like the shapes of things. And the reason I guess that becomes attractive is one, obviously you can make more margin, but the second piece of it is it might allow you to be more scale efficient, right?
Yeah.
So you're not always making something special for everybody. And the ones that you do, the $5,000 and $700 urn, it just feels intuitively like when they like that style of person is so not focusing often on they're so inelastic as far as I'd love to have this. This is so much better than alternative A through X.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And so I guess my question is have you thought much about, because we've spent a lot of time workshopping that I think in the last meeting, thought much about that as a possible way to command more margin, reduce expenses, and get your product out faster.
I think you're constantly thinking about downstream and upstream opportunities. And so downstream, we're thinking, okay, we're going to expose people to something that they've never seen before. So it takes a little while for them to understand it. And right now, we convert probably 10% of our leads that walk in the door. So that means 90% of the people are walking away and we don't even have anything else to offer them. And so we're looking at kind of downstream options, whether it's an e-commerce platform that just says, okay, so the idea of something completely unique and novel didn't necessarily strike you or it was out of market for you from a price point standpoint. Here's some of those more, still custom, but kind of more in the realm of ordinary, something that is more recognizable and relatable to you. But we're also thinking of upstream options as well. So in other words, we've thought about the opportunity, for example, of like commissioning an artist. You can, like if you have a favorite artist, you can commission that artist to design something specifically special for you, and then we would build it. Or interacting with artists where we can have, for example, an artist series where this artist is going to design this thing and then we're going to serialize and sell 200 of these things or 100 of these things at a very high price point. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but you're always looking at up and down and how to churn margin and increase audience and opportunity.
John?
Well, I'll piggyback on the margin discussion a little bit there then. So in the two silos that you're looking at there, specifically the pet and the B2C, what is the difference in margin or pricing between the two of them? And then on top of that then too, is it all under the Foreverance kind of umbrella?
Yeah.
Or are you specifically marketing these different to say, hey, Foreverance is for our people and pet company X is for our animal product? What your thoughts are there?
So margin-wise, it's similar. The design process is the same, but pet pieces are traditionally smaller, so that takes a little bit of the cost out of it. And so instead of $2,500, think $2,000 for something completely custom on the pet side. In terms of, and sorry, can you repeat the first part of you?
So from the pet silo to the
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Silo.
Yeah. So the challenge we have with that is it works one way but not the other, right? And so we don't like the idea of people that interact with us on the human side to all of a sudden be exposed to a bunch of pet products. But at the same time, with pet people, we don't mind the fact that they know that we also make human products, right? And so you're kind of trying to figure out how to balance that. The pet side will be launched under a website called Foreverance Pets, and so it will have a link from the human page, but it will live separately, so to speak. And so that's kind of the challenge we're trying to figure out.
And I mentioned this at our table earlier, but kudos to you guys for really having a unique product, because I never would have thought that I go to a wedding and sit next to my grandma and say, hey, look at this cool urn that you guys could be in a couple of years. So it is a unique and cool idea.
Thank you. I have a quick story about that. So about a couple of years ago, we interacted with this family. We did a piece that was in the shape of a space shuttle. And we came to find out that it was for a guy who was a design engineer for NASA who was involved in the design of the original shuttle. And so this guy was 95 years old, still alive, and his family reached out to us and said, hey, this is what we, the kids, are thinking, but we're only going to do this if Dad approves, right? And so it took a couple days for them to kind of interact with Dad and to see if this was something that he was interested in. And they got back to us and said, okay, Dad's in, let's go. And so they sent us this video of basically, and I don't remember what the event was, but they're presenting Dad almost like a gift they're presenting their father with a cremation urn that's in the shape of the space shuttle, and he's laughing. And he says this quote that I love to share with funeral professionals. But he basically said, he goes, "Oh, I can't wait to share this with my friends at the senior home." You know. And so we always talk to funeral directors like, okay, when was the last time somebody said that about an urn? You know, I think probably never. But when we talk about our web presence, for example, one of the things we always use the term deathy. I don't know if that's a real word, but we don't want to be deathy. You know, we want death and dying, of course, is inherently sad, and it seems like every website that's associated with this product or service wants to take a sad event and make it even sadder. And we feel like our job or our role is to just give people a little bit of a break from that. You know, this is, as weird as it is, people seem to have fun with it and find some joy in it. And so, yeah.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how John's conversation went with his grandma that night.
It turned sour quickly. Yeah. No Christmas presents.
We can talk a little more about that later.
Yeah.
Rick, your thoughts?
Well, that's hard to follow up on, that's for sure. Okay, so I am going to take two marketing angles, which I have to say I love about your product. So the first one is the pets. And I myself am not really a pet guy, so I come at it from that perspective. But every pet person I see, they are just off the charts about their pets. And the thing that really hit me hard on this, and we talked about it last summer at the event, but the other day I heard on the radio $3.5 billion of Halloween costumes are spent by humans. 10% of that market, $350 million, are spent every year on pet Halloween products. So if $350 million a year are spent on pet Halloween products, you should be able to sell a healthy chunk of the pet product. On that front, my question would be, how are you planning on separating those two? Because I totally agree with you, and we've talked about that, is that they do need to have some distance between the two brands. So that would be one question. The other, built in, I've known Wally, your partner, for a number of years. With that said, I haven't really followed the company. And then I saw the Prince urn. Mm-hmm. And so you have this opportunity that is kind of golden PR or viral in nature of these rock stars or celebrities. And so I'd like to know how much thought you've given to trying to get into those kinds of situations, because what you got from the Prince urn from a marketing and PR perspective, I don't even know how you could measure that, because I saw it a lot, and the amount of money you saved by just having that product was really neat. So those would be my two questions.
Yeah.
What are you doing on the kind of celebrity front, and then how are you separating the two, the human and the pet product?
Yeah. So this is there's kind of the internal answer to this and the external answer to this. Of course, externally, we want people to always think that these celebrities are finding us. Well, that's not really the case. And so we do reach out on our company's behalf, generally not directly to the family. So we'll go through an agent, a publicist, a manager, and we reach out that way. So we do have, in fact, we were recently interacting with Burt Reynolds' family, and they were very much considering doing the Smokey the Bandit car as his urn, and they've said they've chosen something else. So I don't know what that something else is yet. But so short answer is that's very much part of, and it's not, that's as you can imagine, that's not a financial play. That's purely a PR and marketing play. So we're very active there.
Absolutely.
In terms of the pet products, I think it's kind of what we talked about, in that you want sort of the spillover to work one way but not the other. And so the pet site will be just called Foreverance Pets, and that will be a separate URL that people will be able to navigate to. And so that will have its own separate digital marketing strategy and execution plan, and so we'll be looking at AdWords campaigns that will drive people directly to that site, not through the Foreverance site. I think that's kind of what we're thinking.
Great. Any other thoughts from the panel of experts? Okay. We've got time for maybe one or two questions. Anyone in the audience? Colin.
We've seen a lot of like uptick in business from working with subscription boxes. They're just like a big thing for sports and general hat wears. Every time I go into my mailroom at my condo, there's a Chewy box, which is I believe is a pet. I'm not a pet guy either, but pet subscription box for their animal. Correct?
I'm not really a pet guy.
Okay, well, just look into this. I'd look into that and maybe trying to find a way to strategically partner with a Chewy that is sending products to these owners' households every month. You could probably find a way to be like, I don't know how to like business-wise talk about it. There's different angles you could approach it, whether it's like a revenue share or whether like you're the earn for, that's backed by Chewy or something.
Yeah.
But that's huge. I mean, there's millions of pet owners that are getting these boxes every month. And if you could get some kind of marketing with them or some strategic partnership with them, I think you could blow up the pet site like overnight.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Really quick. So that would be my 2 cents.
You'd probably be the last item they got.
Yeah. When things have taken a real turn for the worse, call us. All right. So I think just to that, I think there's an opportunity there, but I think one of the things that we've talked about is using veterinarians as a channel partner there, because one thing that's consistent typically about a pet's demise is that there's a veterinarian involved somewhere, somehow. And so kind of similar to what you're talking about, but on the vet side is what we've contemplated, but I'm sure there's a million channel opportunities to consider.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and Colin and Pete both for participating. One last question for the panel of experts, just on a general global basis. What's one lesson you all work with a lot of small businesses? One lesson that you've learned over the years that you might pass along to folks as they look to grow their businesses, just in general?
So we heard from both of them about the fundraising, how they were doing it in drips and drabs and not strategically tackling it. So I think you want to look at a 12 to 18, maybe 24-month window of capital needs and then raise money around that. And raising money for that will dictate what kind of investor. So you're going to target a specific type of investor to fit that need, and then go out to pick the right investor and do your work so that you're knocking on the appropriate doors.
And then piggybacking on the right investor, you always want to have the right people surrounding you as well. Surround yourself with your trusted people, whether it be an accountant, attorney, banker, whoever it might be, because those people are always going to have your best interests. And what you're really good at as a business owner typically is your business. It might not always be working on your business. So really getting yourself out of the whirlwind that may be as a business owner, and leaning on discussions like these and whatnot to help your business grow. So.
Yeah, I guess what I would suggest in addition to that is not just the external but also the internal. It's amazing. I would have to say probably one of the biggest consistencies among businesses are the people that hire well, get the right people that work with them, and then are able to move on when somebody doesn't fast before they find, you said fail early, right? If you discover somebody's not working for you, small business, you don't really have the runway to just keep somebody around for a long time, even if emotionally you'd like to. If somebody's not succeeding, that's an expensive hire, because you are always in a race against time. You're either racing your competitors, racing the market, racing to run to the end of your cash window. So hire well, make sure you're confident in them, and if you didn't hire well, make your next hire better than the first one, right? Because eventually your people, if they're not committed, if they're not great, you will find that's holding you back.
Okay.
Yeah, when I reflect back on Tech Guru and kind of what was the major inflection point, it was implementing an operating system in the business, and for us we picked EOS. Helped us get crystal clear on kind of where we were all headed, got everybody aligned around it. But the other thing we figured out was kind of our why we exist and what we were kind of meant to do and what meant to provide to the world. And that together became like a filtering mechanism for every single thing that we have done and are doing, whether it be who we hire, the marketing that we do, the products and services that we provide. And we created this like filtering mechanism so that it helps us understand, well, what is worth, because again, you can spend unlimited amounts of money on marketing and products and research and people, but this filtering mechanism gave us the answer of whether we should focus on this or not. and helped us continue to grow with intention. Thank you.
Rick, John, Dean, Dan, Pete, Colin, thank you for being here. Thank you all for attending. Wes Bergstrom, publisher of Upsize magazine, I wanted to have him wave. Thank you for being here. We're out of time for the day, but appreciate your attendance and keep reading the magazine, please.